Good evening, welcome. This is the Marion City Council meeting for Thursday, August 17th. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Draper.
Here.
Ms. Etzel. Present. Mr. Spinks.
Present.
Mayor Abou-Osley.
Here.
Mr. Brandt.
Here.
Mr. Nicholson.
Here.
Ms. Pazor.
Here.
Thank you. This time we have a moment of silence. Thank you. This time we have citizen presentations or comments. If anyone is here to address the council, if there's anything you wanted to address that is actually on the agenda as an item to be discussed on the agenda, you might save your comments until that time. Is there anyone to address the council? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed.
Your Honor, I would like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented. Items number 1 through 33, resolutions number 26268 through 26294. I would like to remove number 5 with consideration later, and then number 12.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar with items numbers 1 through 33, resolutions 26268 through 26289, and excluding items number 5, which is resolution 26270, and item 12.
Your Honor, I would like to also include number 8.
Okay. We'll exclude number 8 also. Is that okay, Kim? Add that to the motion?
Sorry. I screwed that up.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the consent calendar as presented, items 1 through 33, excluding number 5, resolution 26270, number 8, resolution 26273, and number 12. Please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Okay, the motion passes.
Okay.
Make a motion for 5.
Your Honor, I would like to make a motion to approve resolution number 26270, authorizing and approving a loan agreement providing for the sale and issuance of general obligation corporate purpose bonds, series 2017A, and providing for the levy of taxes to pay the same.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 26270, authorizing and approving a loan agreement providing for the sale and issuance of general obligation corporate purpose bonds, series 2017A, and providing for the levy of taxes to pay the same. Okay, do we have
Your Honor, we do have
presentation?
Tiana Pooler here, our financial consultant, to give you the results of the bids that we opened this morning.
Okay, welcome.
Hi, nice to see you. Thank you for having me. 2017A, you should have this tabulation of bids. These were the bids that were received earlier today for $6.8 million of bonds. The winning bid was presented by Piper Jaffray. There were 8 bids collected, And actually, there's a long list of other banks involved. So there were a total of 30 banks that were interested in these bonds across 20 states. Piper Jaffray presented the lowest true interest cost of 2.54%. That compares to the estimates from the planning stages of this deal, which was about 2.75. So it's about 21 basis points lower than what we expected. The result of that is that you have about $125,000 more to spend on projects than we estimated when we went into the financing. I'd like to add that Moody's rated your bonds AA1. They reaffirmed that rating, which is there are just a handful of AA1 cities in the state. There's only one rating category higher, so you should be very proud of that. The other thing I wanted to note is that these bonds are being sold as bank qualified, which is a tax benefit that we're actually preserving by selling these bonds now, and your next bonds in a few weeks will come back again. And just as a matter of interest, the city of Des Moines, similarly rated, sold some bonds a couple of weeks ago that were not bank qualified, and in comparable maturities, your yields were 10 to 25 basis points lower. So that's a real economic benefit that you have. And just to note that that's about probably worth around $100,000 of interest savings on this particular bond issue that you managed to do that. And then we'll see the same thing again on the next bonds that we are going to sell in a couple of weeks. So that's sort of the general overview. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions?
What is the amount for the next round that we're going to do?
That one is the refunding, so I think that's about $3 or $4 million. I can't.
So we're staying under the $10 million to be bank qualified. Got it.
That's right. There will be some other financings, and then I think later in the year, but we're being sure to stay under that $10 million.
Yeah.
And then I think there'll be some in 2018 as well.
What is the length of payback on these bonds?
These are 20 years.
20 years.
This is a larger issuance than what you would typically do, so these will be paid off in 2037. Callable in 2024, so you have the ability to call these in for refunding and savings in a few years if the rates warrant it.
That was my question, is can they be called at any time? Or
Not at any time,
but
in the next few years. And the likelihood that rates would be low enough to do it between now and the next 3 or 4 years is probably not very significant. It would be more costly. But we always do put in a call provision to make sure that you can redeem bonds. And actually that's what we're doing in the next couple of weeks is redeeming some bonds that we sold. I think these are 2009 bonds that were sold that we're calling out.
that's why I always never want to shut that door because of what we're going to do next.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else?
Other questions?
No, I just would like to say that's a great bid because you got so many bidders. That's really good. So
I was just talking to Lon. I think this might be the most. I think we've gotten maybe 6 or 7 before, but 8 is probably the most that you've gotten in my memory anyway. But if there aren't any more questions, I would recommend that you award the bonds to Piper Jaffray.
Can you tell us a little bit about the bond rating that you mentioned?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So the rating category, the top rating is AAA, and after that it's AA1. And there are just a handful of communities. Des Moines, for example, is actually AA2. So there are not very many in the state at all. There's probably 3 or 4 AA1 communities. And that's a recognition of your strong financial performance, your great reserves, great strong management. Moody's really can't find anything negative to say about you. I think the only thing that's sort of keeping you out of the AAA category is simply size. There are sort of statistics that they keep on communities, not just in Iowa, but across the country. And AAA communities do tend to be a little bit larger and have a bigger valuation base. But they've commented on how well you're managing your growth, how well you're managing your reserves. They really only have positive things to say about you, and that AA1 rating is a reflection of the strong management and the financial planning that you've got going on in the city.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So for this size city, that's the best we can do then.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think practically speaking, there is sort of an upper limit just based on your valuation. We had a long conversation with them. Staff was very helpful in making sure that we communicated all of the economic development that's going on, and they were really impressed with everything that you're doing to improve the city, to make it so livable. But I really think that that's the only sort of downside is just your valuation.
Well, we're working on it.
Just annex, you know.
Did you load the
You'll get
cannon
it.
up, Paul?
Yeah, we got her.
Well,
But they are, and I'm sorry I don't have the statistics with me on the number of other cities, but when I come back for the next bond sale, I can bring you the exact numbers of other cities in Iowa that have those ratings if you'd like to know that.
Be curious.
yeah, no, it's good information to have. That an outside agency is looking at our financial performance and standing, and is endorsing what's going on with this rating. So
Right, they look at your financial statements, so they're looking at your audit, they're looking at the bonds themselves, they're looking at your debt. So those are all the things that go into it that are considered, above average in quality, which is why you've got the AA. So you should definitely be proud of yourselves. And we talk about it.
our staff.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about it at length every time we go through this bond issue process, and they are great with information and having that conversation with them regularly. So it's a great, and you see it in these rates. 8 bids, 2.5 rate is great. So all around, everyone thinks Marion is great. So
Thank you.
anything else?
Other questions?
I always ask, is there not a step up, there any step up on it?
I'm sorry?
It's not a step up on at all where they can increase that beyond the 10
No,
years?
these are fixed rate.
Thank
So the rates that are going to be in the resolution that you'll approve will not change for the life of the bonds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or discussions on that item?
On that item.
None? Okay, all those in favor of resolution number 26270, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Okay, the motion passes.
Your Honor, with that being passed, there is a couple documents I would like to get your signature on to send back home with Tiana, if that's possible.
Okay, right now?
Which means if the city defaults, you have to pay.
I'll do this one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do you want to make the motion for number 8,
Yes,
please?
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve resolution number 26273, approving contract with Toby Excavation LTD regarding the Tower Terrace Road Phase 2017 demolition of 3493 Winslow and 3490 Indian Creek properties.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 26273, approving the contract with Toby Excavation regarding the Tower Terrace Road Phase 4, 2017 demolition. Discussion.
It just says demolition, but it doesn't have a cost down, and I don't recall having seen a cost.
Your Honor,
Prior meeting, that was, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, the contract was awarded on August 3rd for $29,600. This is just approving the contract once we've accepted it.
29,600?
$29,600, yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions or discussion?
Wasn't that like half the cost of, or close to half of the next bid or something?
It was significantly lower, I don't know the number, but we did receive 4 bids, so 4 quotes, actually.
Thank you.
Other discussion? All those in favor of resolution number 26273, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the mayor's abstention. This includes items number 34 and A, 35, 36, 37, 38, and 39, and also number 12 from the previous consent calendar, which was a motion with staff regarding burying overhead crossings at 6th Avenue and 14th Street for the Central Corridor project.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve consent calendar with items 34 through 39 and item 12, including resolutions 26290 through 26294. Discussion?
I have a question. On 34A, is that the properties that are on Fifth Avenue, between Fifth Avenue and Sixth Avenue and 13th Street and 14th Street? Or 14th and 15th, I guess.
That was for the abatement, that work that was done to all of those properties along the corridor. The asbestos abatement?
Oh, that, the asbestos, okay.
Yes.
Well, it doesn't specify that unless the audience was like at a work session, they wouldn't know what that was about. Thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. And I'm abstaining. Right. Okay, Brent?
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve resolution number 26295, approving a research partnership contract between the City of Marion and the University of Iowa Public Policy Center in an amount of $50,550.09.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 26295, approving a research partnership contract between the City of Marion and the University of Iowa Public Policy Center in an amount of $50,550.09. Discussion? Do you have a presentation or something?
Let me ask you a question. Do any of these people that are involved in this is just I'm not sure exactly what kind of a question, but do they have any on-the-street experience?
No, ma'am. They're academics.
Eggheads.
No, ma'am. They're some of the most qualified, talented people that I've met in my 27 years of law enforcement experience that can really help us take Marion to the next level.
Oh, I have no problem with that, but I just wondered if any of them had any hands-on experience in policing.
No, ma'am. That's not really the purpose of why I'm bringing them here.
That's just out of curiosity.
To the council, I did a little bit of longer presentation on Tuesday, and I appreciate the audience again. Just to reset where we're trying to go with this, the strategic goal is to use intelligence and data to be a progressive police department for Marion. When commercial industry consider moving here, they want to know when they invest millions of dollars in this community that their investments are going to be protected. When citizens move here, they want to know that they have a police department that is going to use data and police fairly to make sure that their families can live in a community that's safe, where they can prosper. Partnering with a research organization like the University of Iowa and the Public Policy Center is going to help us get there quicker. Marion's going to grow. We need to grow with it, and I think everybody in this room agrees with that. I won't belabor the issue, but I would like to introduce Dr. Mark Berg. Ethan Rogers is again here tonight. Dr. Berg comes with a very extensive resume. He will kind of be the lead on the project for us. Dr. DiManio, who was here on Tuesday, he's kind of the head of the entire research organization. but this is the gentleman that I'm going to be working with most extensively with the department, he and Ethan. He's going to say just a few comments, and then we'll sit back down.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I am an associate professor at the University of Iowa. I direct the Crime and Justice Research Policy Program in the Public Policy Center. You met my director, Dr. Damiano, on Monday or Tuesday. And we're looking forward to partnering with Chief McHale. I want you all to know that you have probably one of the most progressive, scientifically oriented police chiefs in this region, if not in the country. And I place that in the pantheon of places like Chicago, St. Louis, where I spent 5 years, Indianapolis, where I spent 4. So we're very excited to know that he's in our region and that we can be of assistance to you, and I can assure you that this will be money well spent. The budget is actually small relative to what we would normally budget for projects like this, and in part it's because your chief had the foresight to know to bargain a lower indirect cost rate with the university. That means you saved a lot of money because the university takes 51% of the contract and we don't see it. I can tell you that we'll deliver 3 products for you by January, by the end of the period, and we'll actually begin working already, so this is underway. First, we'll help your chief with what I think is a very important priority, and that is to restructure your patrol beats in Marion. We'll actually conduct some simulations using geographic informational systems modeling to help him allocate your officers, which are a very important resource, to high crime, high demand areas. Second, we'll work with the department to make what is probably one of the more critical hires that they have made outside of the chief and some of the command staff, and that is an in-house data analytics person. It'll be difficult to find someone with the qualifications that are needed for the position, but I think given our presence here in the corridor and some of our connections on campus to some of our students in public health and other programs, we can be of assistance. So we'll work with your department to identify that person, and we'll also assist them in advertising nationally, which I think is what might be needed. And third, the third product that we'll deliver for the contract between now and January is the infrastructure, essentially, or the capacity for the chief's command staff to deliver twice a week, 5 times a week, once a week, a brief every morning or for every shift of the nature of the crime problem that day, or lack thereof, in Marion, which is what you hope for. And this will be a summary output of crime data, address located. We'll include GIS maps along with that, and that will be used for their in-house intelligence. Whether that's shared publicly, obviously, is up to the chief. So we'll deliver those 3 products between now and January. Ethan Rogers will be working closely with me, and another expert within our unit, Mark Pooley, who's in the budget. He is an expert, one of the best probably on campus in GIS analyses, and we have some other staff in the Public Policy Center that will partner with us also throughout the duration of the project.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah.
Have you
That's some
had
questions.
any other cities work with you, a partnership like this before?
Johnson County is working with us now. They, through a federal stipulation, they've been asked to conduct an accounting of criminal justice processing in their city. So we're working with them with some very sensitive data. I myself, in my career, have worked with Indianapolis, St. Louis, and I'm also a consultant and work with the U.S. Justice Department, and then the Northern District of Iowa, the U.S. Probation Office in Cedar Rapids. In fact, I was in Sioux City yesterday meeting with 2 of the chief judges in the Sioux City District on a research project. So, and I can say I spent 9 months as a dispatcher in 2000, working 3rd shift.
There you go.
And I was certified for about 5 years, so I'm not entirely an egghead.
That's about as hands-on as you can get, too, is it?
All right. Anything else?
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I want to commend our chief for seeking out this partnership, for your department for being willing to partner with us, and I think the prospects are very exciting. I don't know if you know this, but Marion has been one of the safest cities in Iowa for many, many years, and we're a leader in many areas, and here we are again leading by example with other cities in terms of this type of partnership and using the resources and the tremendous knowledge base that is at the university to enhance what we're doing here and to help us in our department do a better job and to keep us one of the safest cities in Iowa. So we're really looking forward to this partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Your Honor, I'd like to make a recommendation to approve ordinance number 17 dash.
We need to vote on that. We haven't voted on this.
Oh, we have it?
We need to approve this.
Sorry.
Yep.
Oh, Dave, go.
We're all excited for it.
Yeah.
The Cubs playing tonight.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving resolution number 26295, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes.
Now I'd like to recommend approving ordinance number 17-19 relating to noise prohibitions and limitation sound sources for second consideration.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 17-19 relating to noise prohibitions and limited sound sources. This is the second consideration. Anyone need a reminder of what this is? Okay. Discussion?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
oh, sorry.
Once again, it's putting something on the books really that is not enforceable. But I suspect that it's like the smoking in the parks ordinance, that it's there if you need it. And I guess that's the way I'm going to look at it rather than oppose it.
And our chief did indicate that he thought it was enforceable and has enforced a similar ordinance, and that it's
In my previous life, we enforced it 50 feet on music from vehicles with some validity in justice system.
certainly more enforceable than what's currently the ordinance.
Absolutely.
So we're moving in the right direction, and as with all ordinances, you rely on our citizens being law-abiding and following the law. So, any further discussion? All those in favor of approving ordinance number 17-19 for the second consideration, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes.
Your Honor, I move to suspend the rules in place for final consideration.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to suspend the rules and place the ordinance number 17-19 on the table for final consideration. Any discussion?
Chief, have you had any backlash from this or any comments or anything on this?
The only comments that I've had were pre-drafting this. There were complaints from citizens that we could not enforce any type of noise violation.
Yeah,
Okay, so hopefully they'll be pleased with this. Any further discussion?
I forgot about Councilman Draper's car. That did get brought up after the fact.
That's right.
Okay, all those in favor of ordinance number 17-19, final consideration, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes.
Okay, Your Honor, I move to remove from the table ordinance 17-18, concurring with Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation to amend ordinance 13-14 of the Marion Code of Ordinances, removing the limitation on hours of operation for property generally transcribed as being located south of Tower Terrace Road, west of 3rd Street, east of Irish Drive, and north and west of Esco Company. This is the initial consideration, and this was tabled at the July 20th meeting.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to remove from the table ordinance number 17-18, concurring with the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation to amend ordinance 13-14 of the Marion Code of Ordinances, removing the limitation on hours of operation for property generally described as being located south of Tower Terrace Road, west of 3rd Street, east of Irish Drive, and north and west of Esco Company. Discussion.
Well, this is just
Are you
to
going
remove from the
Just
table.
remove from the table, yeah.
Okay. What you're proposing we adopt is not the same ordinance that you had before, so do we need to remove this from the table?
I believe so. Yeah.
It was tabled,
It can
so.
be tabled forever.
Well, if it goes back on 13-14,
Okay.
then it would have to be, wouldn't it? If it went back as ordinance 13-14,
So based on the feedback, we've amended the original ordinance, removing from the table and allow the amendment within the first
Okay.
reading, I think is where we're at.
Okay. Just so that's clear. All right. Any discussion on removing from the table? All those in favor of removing ordinance number 17-18 from the table, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes.
Yes, Your Honor, I would recommend ordinance number 1718, amending ordinance 1314 of the Marion Code of Ordinances, removing the limitation of hours in operation for properly generally described as being located south of Tower Terrace Road, west of 3rd Street, east of Irish Drive, and north and west of Esco Company. And this is the initial consideration of an item that was tabled July 20th of 17.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 17-18, amending ordinance 13-14 of the Marion Code of Ordinances, removing the limitation on hours of operation for property generally described as being located south of Tower Terrace Road, west of 3rd Street, east of Irish Drive, and north and west of Esco Company. Okay. Do you have a presentation?
Yes, Your Honor. So at the last city council meeting, there was discussion regarding the ordinance that was tabled. And staff brought forward something for consideration. Much of the public hearing that was held concentrated on 3 specific items. One, obviously, the hours of operation being proposed, and then what the definition of a bar and a restaurant was. I think most people were opposed to strictly a bar, and I think that's what was really a pivotal point that was made during the public hearing. I think there was also a lot of discussion about what defines a restaurant and a bar, what the difference is, and how that can be worked into an ordinance. The hours of operation, I think most people that spoke were just opposed to any change in that hours of operation, and I don't know that there was any movement on that. At that meeting, the council asked us to have further conversation with the neighborhood. We brought back at the following work session a summary of the public hearing and asked that it be considered that rather than go through the process and really get down to a further conversation, is to bring forward an ordinance that really addressed what the major concerns at the public hearing were. And I think there were 3 major issues, and I think at the work session we talked about them and we're bringing them forward as an amendment to the original ordinance, and I'd just like to walk through those with you now. First off, I'd just like to say that everything that's being proposed is only for the area in red. So the properties east of 3rd Street and west of Irish Drive and north of Tower Terrace, there's no amendment to the current ordinance being proposed. So the only area impacted is the area in red. In that area, it's proposed that the businesses shall not be open to the public between the hours of 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. Monday through Friday, and 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday. So a business operation during the week would have to be closed at midnight. On a Friday and Saturday, they'd have to be closed at 1. This still does leave, if someone wanted to be open to 2, they could come in for a conditional use permit. Based on a lot of the information, I don't know that we'll have many of those, but clearly that's still allowable in the ordinance.
As it is now?
As it is now. Okay. And it is in the other areas as well. Further, we placed in the ordinance the definition of a restaurant. A restaurant would be that place of business engaged in sales of food and beverage in which the business of selling beer and alcoholic liquor would be less than 50%. So someone comes in, they propose an establishment that serves food, also serves beer and liquor. There can be a call for what their gross revenues are, and if it's exceeding the 50% rule, they're going to have to change the way that they operate their business to bring it in line with that ordinance. So I think that's a good way to define what a bar and a restaurant is. It provides the opportunity at the time of a proposal to take a look at it and have further conversations. So a restaurant would be permitted in the red area. Defining a bar is very similar, except that it would be an establishment in which they serve more than 50% of their gross revenues for beer and alcohol. And that's just strictly prohibited. So you would not be able to put a bar in that area that's in red, period. So you'd have to serve food as a restaurant if you're serving alcohol. And really, those are the major changes to the ordinance. I think previously it was just the hours of operation were being proposed. And in this instance, we're actually defining a bar and a restaurant and eliminating what I seem to recall from the public hearing to be the biggest obstacle to anything, and that is strictly the opening of a bar. So this is the first reading of the ordinance. If the council does pass this reading, there would be 2 additional readings, just so the council's aware. That would be on the agenda for review. We are not required to hold a public hearing because these amendments would not be such that are changing the ordinance drastically. So we did not publish a public hearing notice. We did notify the neighborhood as a courtesy to let them know that it is back on the agenda. We notified the same folks that we had notified in previous hearings related to this, but it is not a public hearing. So, and it was also in the newspaper. So,
okay.
If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer.
Discussion, questions?
Yes, sir.
Please.
When a new area comes into effect in the city, it is entered into the comprehensive plan for zoning and things like that. And it just seems that it's kind of an arbitrary decision to all of a sudden say, okay, we're not doing the business we think we should on this piece of property, so let's rezone it. And why bother to have a comprehensive plan to begin with? Question.
Well, the zoning has nothing to do. The zoning is not relative to the comp plan. The comp plan lays out a general guideline for land use in the community. Mm-hmm. The zoning is commercial. The zoning is commercial currently, has been commercial, or planned commercial since it was developed. The commercial was here at the same time the residential homes were there. The only difference that's being proposed here are the hours of operation within that commercial zoning district. So what you were speaking to is a much larger and broader land use and zoning conversation. This land has been commercially zoned since the houses next to it were there.
And it's shown that way in the comprehensive plan as commercial, or?
When this property was rezoned, it was consistent with the comprehensive plan.
So,
just keep you honest, that's all I'm trying to do.
So it's clear, the comprehensive plan shows this area as commercial.
Correct.
For commercial use.
And the only question was the number.
And the zoning has been commercial. The request was, so we can recap for everybody. The request was to remove it was rezoned to C3, but it had a limitation of hours of operation to 11 p.m. Right. So technically, a bar could if they were willing to open to only 11 p.m. right now, they don't have to rezone anything. Somebody can go and buy a parcel and build a bar right now.
Correct.
In that area.
Correct.
Okay. The developer asked to remove the limitation on hours of operation because what he said was there were restaurants that wanted to come that also serve alcohol that may want to be open past 11 p.m. on a weekend.
Correct.
Okay. And when the residents of the area came in and spoke to the council, I think most of them said we're realistic. We know this is commercial, but we're worried about if you make it 2 p.m. If you make it 2 p.m., then a bar could come in and operate in our backyard. Your proposal here basically says just in this limited area. We're only talking about this limited area. We're removing the ability to open a bar by defining a bar as an establishment that has more than 50% of its sales alcoholic beverages. So it permits a restaurant to come in because maybe the midnight time is a little more attractive, but it keeps bars out. Okay. Did I miss something? Or is that?
No. I think in our consideration and recommendation on changing that, one of the things that we wanted to ensure is that we were not creating the bar of last stop in the neighborhood. So you're out and you want to go closer to town for our neighborhood, whatever. So I think the 1 o'clock eliminates that kind of last stop conversation that kind of gets talked about. And provides the opportunity on the weekends for establishments that can be opened after a football game, after any type of event in the community, or just late hours on a Friday night. So.
Okay. And this doesn't change anything for the rest of the area out there. And I mean, I guess I would just note that this particular area in red is really the only, well, not the only one, but it doesn't abut backyards of people.
Correct.
So if you were going to have something with a little more high intensity use or a restaurant out there in that area, I mean, that seems to me to be the place it could go. But I guess I'm willing to listen to what everybody else has to say. So I know we have residents here. Is there anybody that wanted to say anything? You're welcome to.
Can I ask Tom one thing
Sure,
before
go ahead.
they do that? Tom, would you share that statistic you gave us Tuesday about the Hard Rock Cafe and the percentage?
Yeah, I mean, from a restaurant perspective, I wish I'd have brought the document with me, but I did a little research and tried to figure out, what are the average sales of alcohol beverages for restaurants, and they had identified the top 50. Most of them, the Applebee's, they had ones that weren't even recognizable around here. But the interesting thing is the ones that I guess I would think would be more of a bar restaurant atmosphere. But even operations, Buffalo Wild Wings was the high 20s, I believe. The highest restaurant that I saw in the top 50 list was Hard Rock Cafe, and it was at 35%. So I think, when you think of most of the restaurants, the Applebee's and the Buffalo Wild Wings and the TGI Fridays, I think was in the mid-20s as well. They're truly operating at a restaurant scale. They do have a bar, and I didn't check the hours of operation, but many of them I'm sure are open. I think someone had said, I think at a previous meeting, and I didn't check this out, that Buffalo Wild Wings is open till 11 or midnight on the weekdays and 1 o'clock on the weekends. So I think that was an interesting find, though, is that largely the restaurants that we all kind of associate with are in that 20 to 30% sales.
Thank you.
I think, Tom, the thing is that you need to let them know that 50% isn't something that we have, that's generally accepted. In my first life, the liquor liability law, state of Iowa, Illinois, and many others, is that if it's under 50%, it is a restaurant, and they pay considerably less for their liquor liability than that of a bar over 50%. So that's not something that we've thought up. It's something that's generally in the industry.
I did spend some time. I talked to an insurance company that it wasn't an individual, it wasn't one insurance. It was a company that sells the policies to multiple companies, and I asked them to talk with their underwriters, and they said the same thing. Not every insurance company is the same. It's not all 50% rule, but they have general guidelines, and most of them are at the 50% rule. They even got into the details of if it has a dance floor and if it has less than 50% plus food sales, and it really there's a lot of detail that goes into it. But the 50% was generally accepted
annually.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Sir. Well,
Did you want to hear from the public?
Absolutely. I said that before. So.
I just want to be sure.
Oh, absolutely. It's always a part of our process, and all you need to do is please fill out the card. You can do it after if you want, but we just need your name and address. Please.
Do you want someone to come up now, or?
Absolutely. You can just approach the microphone and state your name and address, and then make sure you fill out the card afterwards for us. Thank you.
Give you my promise, I will. Okay, my name is John Tracy. I live at 350 Irish Drive, and if you look at the dotted line that's yes, that's my house right there. My wife and I live there, and first of all, our main concerns are with the extended hours is that this is going to lead to declining property values, crime coming into the neighborhood, and the possibility that either a student or an adult is going to be injured or worse in an alcohol-related accident. So those are our three main concerns with extended hours with a bar or a restaurant, and either would serve alcohol. I'll just give you this is just kind of a reality, and this, if I can have 60 seconds here. Our bedroom in that house faces north, and right now there's about 8.5 feet of corn between our backyard and the sidewalk on Tower Terrace, and we can sit in the backyard any day of the week, any nice day in warm weather, and people are walking dogs, they're strolling, babies, just exercising, doing whatever on that sidewalk. We can hear word for word conversations through the corn, and sometimes it's only 15 or 20 seconds as people pass one way or the other, but even with cars occasionally going past, you can hear a conversation. I'm concerned that a bar or a restaurant in that area that's open till midnight or 1, that's when people are leaving at 12:30 or 1 o'clock, chances are they're not going to be going to their cars in dead silence. And we're just also concerned about the noise that's going to be created. So those are our concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have questions for him before he sits down? Okay. Just making sure nobody had a question for you. Okay, anyone else? Yeah, please come forward. Please state your name and address.
Steve Point, 715 Barrington, and some of the concerns are just kind of a little regurgitation with bar, restaurant, however you want to view it. I have a lot of concerns as well. That park right there is where all the kids practice, which is in the evenings. And there is a lot of activity on Tower Terrace. to Irish, which takes you up to the trails for the folks to be safe out of the way. Lowry Park, they had an event out there, and there's absolutely no parking. I was going to take the roundabout way, which would take me right to Tower Terrace, which you're talking those hours when a lot of people get off of work. That's going to be flooded with what you're trying to do. The last meeting we were at, I heard someone say, well, every time we do this, we're going to keep having this every time. Well, it's because when we purchased the homes, it wasn't zoned for that. I probably wouldn't purchase my home there just if I knew this was going to happen, okay? Really bad. I've been waking up at 3:45 this morning, all week. I don't want it. I don't want the noise. If it's a last stop, you're kidding yourself. It'll be a stop. It'll go home. It'll get noisy. It'll get busy. I'll get cranky. I'll call the police. If someone gets injured,
Can I ask you? You said it wasn't zoned that way. What did you?
Light residential, light commercial.
Like, what do you expect would be there?
Dentists, shops, just like what they put right across the street where they wanted to put that other establishment right next to the schools. They got dentist office, chiropractors.
And where do you live? You live on
715 Barrington.
Office transitional, I think.
Yeah. But I'm on Tower Terrace with exercising, people walking their dogs, everybody out there, children playing right there. What you don't see across the street is homes, which there's kids out there playing all day long. I see them when I go out. That's not where you want something, right on the corner. I see kids skateboarding down Irish Drive, 6 o'clock, come on, evening time. I don't care what you're selling, what you're doing, 50%. You're going to have a happy hour. It's going to be that time frame. Kids are going to be coming home from practice from the high school. They can't drive as is.
But do you understand that could happen now without any rezoning?
I do.
It could happen now. If a restaurant said,
but
we're happy only opening till 11 o'clock, they could do
letting
that.
Everybody understand, though. You want me to speak?
Of course I want you to speak.
There's a lot of people in the community that are on that Tower Terrace. There's animals, there's children playing, there's all kinds of stuff. You can have it right now, but you want to rezone, do all these hours, it'll just create a nightmare for the community. I wouldn't have bought my home. I wouldn't have purchased.
That's what I'm trying to get to understand. So I'm not. I'm trying to make sure we're all on the same page.
3:45.
I'm sorry, but I'm trying to make sure we're all on the same page and that we understand everything. So, how does the change? How is it going to create a nightmare situation over what could happen now? How could changing the hour, the time limit by 1 hour and then 2 hours on weekends, how could that create a nightmare situation over what can happen now, the way it's currently zoned and has been zoned?
Because if you extend the hours, okay, let's just say everybody wants everybody to stop there after a high school event, right? Who drives home when they get back from out of town? The children, the kids, right? They're going to drive. You're going to have this establishment open a lot later, past 11 o'clock, on away games. That was my concern when you wanted to put it in that other spot right there. And it's just not a good spot to keep the hours open. I mean, if you don't feel for the children of the community driving home and the parents driving home and someone coming, late, travel, away game, and you want to extend the hours, and someone's been drinking under 50% of the alcohol percentage in a restaurant, whatever, it's not a good atmosphere. It's not a place, that is not a place to extend the hours. They want the money for the events, but they're not thinking of the children coming home and the driving home when they're getting on from away games to drive back to their houses either. I don't have any children at the house. I'm an empty nester, but I see too much activity going on, and I care, and I would hope this council would care. So that's why I say if you want to do something, put it down, because You got a lot of nice houses and kids playing right across the street from there. They're all at that pond. They're all right there. So I care. And I care if it's past 1 o'clock and I got to be up Saturday morning to go to work. So I'll care. I care. I guess. That's why I'm here, speaking for everybody, even though I don't have any kids, but I wouldn't have bought my home if I'd have known something like that's there, all those extended hours. I'd have moved somewhere else.
Any questions?
A lot of dollars in those houses with a lot of kids playing on that corner.
Thank you. Sir.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Sir, come forward.
My name is Bob Schlegel. I live at 3600 North 10th Street, and I promised both my wife and all of my children and Tom I would never get up here and speak in front of the city council anymore, because that's all I've been doing since Tower Terrace Road was put in. I may be wrong, Tom, but I'll bet you this is at least the 5th zoning change that we've been hit with since the initial Tower Terrace Road development plot was approved. At least 5, okay? And I remember when all of that property that they're talking about was initially zoned as office transitional, single story. It wasn't zoned commercial. Also, we can't compare putting a restaurant in that neighborhood to where Wild Wings is or where Carlos O'Kelly is. They are totally surrounded, half a mile at least, maybe a mile of heavy commercial. There are no upscale residential family units around Carlos O'Kelly's or Buffalo Wild Wings. They're in a major, shopping mall environment. This is, unfortunately, because of the way Tower Terrace was initially zoned, a lot of people built residential homes on there. And since those homes were built, I'll bet you we've had at least 5 zoning changes they've been hit with. And I just don't think it's fair to do anything to disturb that piece of property, especially when it's located a block from Linn-Mar High School. The whole other end of Tower Terrace is open. There's no houses built up there. That's slightly better than putting it right here. If you want to have a major shopping mall, my gosh, when the zoning is set initially, don't allow those developers to change it so they can continue to sell their property. Say it was zoned this to begin with, we built the houses, live with it. And I don't think these people should be forced with having that kind of heavy commercial right next to their new homes.
Tom, does anyone have questions for Mr. Schlegel? No? Okay, Tom.
I just want to clarify that this was office transitional down in the vicinity of, my cursor's not moving the greatest here. This area, by where the chiropractors are, or the chiropractor office is, and the orthodontics. When the property west here came in, it was zoned commercial. It was PDC, Plan Development Commercial. They rezoned it to straight commercial a couple years back. The only change that, and then the other consideration that was brought forward was a conditional use permit consistent with the commercial zoning for a restaurant. The gentleman that spoke, he was here, and it was proposed to go on this corner here. I believe it was here, or was it on the other side? There, it was on this side of the street. So the commercial in this vicinity and that's been there when the houses were built. When these houses south of here were built, this property was zoned commercial.
When those houses were built, it would have been possible to build a restaurant under the zoning?
Yes. In the original zoning, there was identified in the site development plan because it was planned development. There was a family video store identified, a small grocer was identified. I don't recall what else, but yes, there were definitely.
And why do people keep saying they had the impression that it was going to be office and I think strip malls, I think you said? Strip centers?
I think the retail component, most people associate commercial with
Retail and
Yep.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, it's commercially zoned. Retail allows for a lot of, you could build a liquor store out here. Always been able to do a liquor store. I think the reality is that the price and the value of the property is only going to drive some pretty nice developments. I don't really see the scary situations occurring. So that's just my perspective, but it's always been zoned commercial.
From the first time it was rezoned from ag?
The PDC and
it was zoned directly to PDC,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Which meant that it had some restrictions on it, or?
The planned development commercial, without looking directly at what was allowed within that commercial, it was commercially zoned, but it required that the applicant bring their site plans back through the process.
That's right.
And we did require that for quite a few of the first buildings that came up. So there was a process that was required. They didn't have the business names associated when they brought those in. They were bringing in the strip centers that were there just west of 10th Street. We saw the site plans and elevations. Part of the problem with that is it requires quite a bit of time to go through the process of doing a preliminary site development plan, final site development plan. Once the several projects were occurred, I thought the council was fairly comfortable. He wanted to get rid of that time frame that it cost him to get the projects approved. So he came to the council and asked to go from planned development commercial to a straight commercial zoning, which there's no public viewing of the site development plans. And so that was the one request that came forward. So it went from a planned development commercial to a commercial district.
Other questions or discussion? I'd like to know what everybody thinks here.
Well, the only thing that would be good would be to go back how many years and start all over, with maybe a buffer between residential and Tower Terrace, so that the right-of-way is wider, so that you don't have buildings in the right-of-way. But obviously that can't happen, so. I don't know. I understand the gentleman that bought the house believing that it was going to stay residential and is concerned about property values. I understand that.
I don't think anybody expected it would stay residential.
Well, when you buy a house in a neighborhood that is just building,
undeveloped,
and you have the expectation that what is going to go into that neighborhood are going to be more houses, and then all of a sudden to have the rug pulled out from under you and somebody comes in and wants to go commercial.
But I mean, just so that so we're all on the same page, and to be fair, what Tom is saying is it was zoned commercial. I mean, I don't know how people could have the expectation it would be residential. It's been zoned commercial.
Well, sometimes you don't check when you see a house being built. You think, oh, okay, this is going to be a nice residential neighborhood, and so you don't bother to check and see what the zoning is.
I understand that.
And perhaps that is part of the problem.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Well,
I'd like to know what people think.
I really like this idea. I think it's a great place for the kids to hang out, because I know of those kids in high school, they like a place to hang out, and I think it's Buffalo Wild Wings right now, and that is a distance from Marion. So this way they're going to be closer to home. So I think that's a good thing. And then the idea about the noise, that isn't a quiet neighborhood. I know what it's like in the morning when the band is practicing. It's not quiet there, so there's already a lot of noise with the school.
In the traffic, sure.
In
We have a
traffic,
couple-
yeah.
Yep.
I'll say too, that just keep in mind too, that this is gonna be a main thoroughfare, so this is gonna be heavy traffic once it's all completed. Have to keep that in mind too.
Okay. So we'll let this gentleman speak, and then you can come back up, sir, after he's finished, if you still wanted to talk. So, okay, go ahead.
Wayne Tweeten, 988 Erica Avenue. My 14-year-old and 17-year-old don't need to be hanging out where they're serving alcohol. I'm sorry, that's not the place for it. It's not the place in this neighborhood. We negotiated agreements during the annexation part of this, and those were under the assumption, under the understanding and the goodwill of the council and the development committee that this would remain a community we would live in, not a community open to restaurants that serve 50% alcohol. If you go and buy $15 worth of food and drink $15 worth of alcohol, you shouldn't be on the streets. You shouldn't be on the streets, okay? So let's keep it residential for the community, for the people.
So, if you'd like to speak again, please, but you have to come forward so that everybody can hear you, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Maybe this is a question for you or Lon or Tom, I'm not sure, but I'm fairly certain that Gill Park is going to be that opening to, Irish Drive is going to be extended from where it now ends into Gill. Put it this way. The dead end that I live near on Irish Drive is going to be connected to Tower Terrace Road. And part of that is going to be a new opening to John Gill Park. Pretty certain that's part of the city's plan. And if you look at Irish Drive coming down and then going from north to south, and you can see where it ends just across from the red line where this new building's going to be built. I'm pretty sure that somewhere in there, Irish Drive is going to be extended to where it now dead ends. So it would be extended from Tower Terrace Road. It would cross Tower Terrace Road and be extended to my neighborhood. And also there'll be a new opening to John Gill Park. I guess I'm asking the council, do you guys think that will increase traffic into Gill Park? And would it be a good idea to have the restaurant located right at that corner with a lot more traffic? I think there's plans for a full court basketball arrangement to be built in John Gill Park and other improvements. It just seems like there'll be more traffic there.
Okay. Thank you. That's accurate? The
extension of Irish, yeah.
Irish.
It's actually, it's the black dashed line on there.
Okay.
Is there gonna be an entrance to Gill Park there too?
Yes, there currently is. We'd like to make it more prominent.
Gotcha.
Right now, there's very limited parking. I would point out that the property south of Tower Terrace Road and east of Alburnett, this area here, there it is, that is zone 01. It has no hours of operation restrictions. It does not allow a restaurant, but it does allow professional offices, dentist office, daycares, financial institutions. There's some conditional uses permitted as well. But that could be built on today. So a strip mall or could go in right there.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, from the last meeting, it seemed like the neighborhood was really against bars. But from today's meeting, it seems like they're even against commercial. Seems like I've heard a couple people say that it should remain residential. Well, it's not going to be rezoned backwards to residential. So that's a little confusing for me. I mean, unless it's high-density residential, like apartments.
Yep. Yeah. That would take a rezoning.
That would take rezoning.
You're not going to have driveways on Tower Terrace. So.
No, you wouldn't have driveways.
I was not at the last meeting when that was discussed, and and that's where I was understanding too that the big issue was bars, and so when the idea came up of just let's eliminate bars and just allow for a restaurant, I too felt like that was a reasonable solution to this, and when you're looking at a restaurant like an Applebee's. I don't see that as a place that would be someplace I would tend to say, I'm going to hang out after dinner and just stay there and continue to drink until 12 o'clock. I would be eating there, that I would be leaving there much earlier. I don't see that as a destination bar stop myself on a type of restaurant like that. And I know the fear is there that it could be, but it's one of those things that the unknown is, I think, the bigger fear, the unknown, whether it could be or could not be. But and I don't know what type of restaurant will ultimately end there, if there is a restaurant, and how big of a bar presence it would be. It may have very little bar presence, but we don't know right now what type of restaurant's going to go in there, but I just don't, I was thinking that this was a happy medium, and I'm understanding that the fear is there, and even with the children and the traffic and all of that, that is, any commercial development which is always zoned for commercial development, that traffic is always going to be there, so it's not going to be any probably worse than it would have been with whatever ends up being there. Traffic is always going to be there, and I too am concerned about kids, but that is a main thoroughfare, and it's been slated to be a main thoroughfare, and I seen a restaurant there, potential restaurant there. I don't see that being as any more concerning than having a Subway, a sandwich shop, or anything like that. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, even close, there's a limit right now. One of those little restaurants over there, they serve alcohol right now. I was thinking one of the ones that may have like you could get a bottle of beer or something, at a place, and so, it's. Even, if you end up having a gas station somewhere, you can go get liquor right now, and that's always a concern. I'm sure Chief McHale would, drinking and driving is a big concern, and, and being responsible, and where there serves alcohol, that always is a concern. But I don't see that as the 11 o'clock versus having open 12, because the majority of the time it's open till would be, 11 to 12 is not a big change, in my opinion, during the week especially. And I'm sure if you go into an Applebee's during the week especially, you're probably seeing it's probably dead at that point in time. There's nobody there if you would go into a place like that. But I just...
After 9 o'clock, there's nothing going on in restaurants in this entire area.
Yeah, so I am not going to minimize the issue, but I just don't see it going to be that big of an issue, personally.
So, please come forward. Thank you. Sorry to make you do that, but it's so that we can all hear you. Plus, the meeting is taped, so we want it all on tape. Yeah.
Steve Point, 715 Barrington. That little red spot's no big deal, and nothing goes on. So why are we extending the hours? If nothing's going on past 9, 10, 11, why are we extending hours? And I do hear the band play every morning, but I'm not worried about those people. Okay? I knew I was getting into that. I didn't know I was getting into past 11 o'clock. That's why I bought the house.
I think we were told that restaurants who want to be in that area would like to have the option to open later than 11 o'clock on certain evenings or certain times, things like that.
Right, but the residents that live there, to everybody it's real easy. It's no big deal. But to the residents that live there, you don't know their hours of operations, what they work, what they provide for their kids when they pick their kids up after they get off work. Everyone that here is thinking it's easy. When you live in the area and you're told things and you're suspecting that nothing's going to be past 11 o'clock, you know what you're getting into. I can tell you, I hear the bands play. That's great. It's awesome. A lot of people live there because of the schools. It wasn't because they want a restaurant past 11 o'clock. They did it for their kids. Not easy. If you live out there, you'd understand. If you go out there and see everything, all the activity, and it will be a major road. But let's keep it, the hours limited. I'm open. All right. Thanks.
Any other questions for him?
You know,
Thank you, sir.
Isn't only the band. Linmar came forward with a letter, but their lights are on some nights till 1 o'clock in the morning after a football game. Football games often go beyond 11 o'clock at night. Not a good thing, guys, but I think that, you know, it's been zoned commercial. I've bought houses where I found out I could have anything behind me and sold them later without a great deal of problem. Maybe the realtors didn't tell you, sorry, Will, that the thing was zoned commercial back there when you bought your homes. But I don't think it's fair to you guys not knowing what's going to go there. I mean, right now it's open. You know, a liquor store to me would be much worse than a restaurant. A liquor store a block from the school that would also be kind of a convenience store. Linmar has always not wanted a convenience store across the street from it, and a liquor and tobacco store could go in there right now. And to me, that'd be a lot worse than a restaurant.
I kind of like what Dave said. Is the previous meeting, it seemed like everybody that got up talked about bars, and I too thought that we were with the changing of this to eliminate bars. We were doing what the neighborhood wanted. And again, it's commercial. It's been zoned commercial from beginning. I know when I had a client bought a house in I think it was 2012, it was commercial then. I guess it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Anyone else? Joe? Any further discussion? Pardon? Okay, any further discussion? Oh, sir, please come forward.
Bill Wright, 883 Eastview Avenue. My property is right diagonally across Tower Terrace from this area you're talking about. My concern is they let him build this, take this 1 a.m. bar opening or whatever you want to call it, however you want to term it. He's going to jump across the street and he's going to want the same thing over there. And we're going to have about 3 more over there. That's what's the neighborhood going to turn to then? And you're not showing all the new houses in the mayor's house included on that Eastview Avenue curve up there. That's an old plat or old picture. get a full impact of it than if you'd get the rest of the houses that are there. There's only two lots between mine and the next house that are still open on Eastview. They're all larger homes. I'd sit on an acre of ground. Everybody on Eastview Avenue sits on an acre of ground.
Okay, other discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I do have one comment, and it just seems to me that I realize that commercial, industrial is really nice, but it's just kind of ignoring the individual taxpayer on this, and I don't think that's right. Opinion.
Other discussion?
Call the question, Your Honor.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you're moving to, you're calling the question?
I want to call the question, yes.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to stop discussion and vote. All those in favor of stopping the discussion and voting? Well, discussion on that first. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Okay.
Who was the second on that vote to call the question?
I'll second it.
Oh, we did.
I don't second it. Anyone else?
Okay. We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Draper?
Yes.
Ms. Etzel?
Yes.
Mr. Spinks?
Yes.
Mayor Abalosely?
Yes.
Mr. Brandt?
No.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Ms. Pazur?
No.
Passes 5-2.
Okay.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve resolution number 26296, approving the final plat and memorandum of agreement for Champions Estates, 4th edition, for property located east of Triple Crown Drive and north of Stanley Cup Drive, Marion, Iowa, GS Enterprises.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 26296, approving the final plat memorandum of agreement for Champions Estates, 4th edition, for property located east of Triple Crown Drive and north of Stanley Cup Drive. Discussion.
I'm forgetting exactly where or what this is. I know as soon as you unplugged that, I said it right.
Right. Hopefully, there.
I mean, I know where it's at. I just can't remember what we looked at or what the plat was.
We really didn't talk too much about it on Tuesday. Okay. It's a pretty small final plat.
Oh, so it's up there.
Yeah, so it's out by Hunter's Ridge, just east of Lucor. Lucor here being Hunter's Ridge Road extension, Artesian. So the area that we're talking about is here. If you've been out in this area, the road, they've elevated the road a little bit, maybe more than a little bit as it goes through there. It's a small final plat.
Yeah.
But comparatively, if you look at the preliminary plat, it's quite large. I think, this is a good example of the area south of this line. My cursor doesn't show up very quickly here. Has been developed, but the north part is not. So there's probably another 75 lots out there, and it's all being farmed currently. So this is an 11 lot final plat, so it's just a small portion of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, straightforward. Improvements are in.
Other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of resolution number 26296, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Okay, the next three items under planning and the first two items under administration, I will be abstaining from voting, and we'll turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem.
I want to open a public hearing regarding the proposed disposition of portion of public property located south of 8th Avenue and north of 5th Avenue and between 27th and 35th Streets, Marion, Iowa, to GLD Properties, LLC. Could you give us a brief on that a little bit?
31st Street.
Yes, so this is this property we've been talking about for some time. Sorry, did you want to?
No, 31st Street, he said 35th,
Oh,
sorry.
31st.
Just correcting you.
Oh, okay.
The area that we're talking about is outlined in the dark and black on the screen. You can see the roundabout at 7th and about 26th is located, and then 31st Street is on the right-hand side of the screen, adjacent to Plata Survey 2055 and Plata Survey 112 in the illustration. The area that is white within there was the former Prince Ag property. If you recall, they were just east of Marion Iron, and when the corridor project came through, we had conversations with them about trying to relocate them in the community, and they ultimately moved back to Quincy to their home office. But this property has been vacant, was vacant. GLD, Gibbs Lamb Drown, has purchased the property, and we've been working with them over the years for different development projects. One of the things that has always been maintained throughout this is that we would be working to acquire a portion of property from them for 7th Avenue improvements, and this is the hatched area here near that red dot. In addition, and because of the narrowness of the property and what happens when you actually remove that portion, it becomes extremely narrow. We've talked about the sale of property 2054 and 2055 specifically over time. The city has been working with them. We've got a purchase agreement. I think we've talked about this at length in the past. This is the location of the Marriott site that's being proposed, and we're now at the point at which we are ready to start acquiring and selling property. The area that is being, there's actually two phases to this purchase agreement. The first one is that we would exchange ground that 7th Avenue currently sits on for Plata Survey 2054 and 2055. And then the second would be the sale of property to GLD that we own. It's identified as Plata Survey 112. That was its former plat. It's actually 2172 now. We replatted the property. But that sale would then occur in the spring prior to June of next year. So essentially what we're talking about is there'd be a land exchange that would close within the next 30 days, 2054 and 2055, in exchange for the identified area that 7th Avenue is on. The city would be providing payment of $102,692 in that exchange, and then in the spring, the second phase, the city would sell this area here for $1.4 million, and we would close at that time. So the concentration on this project has been the development of the hotel here. There's other projects in the mix. This is just a concept. This is not an overall development plan, but the hotel's proposed to go on in the center. There's options for commercial pads on either side of that hotel that are being planned. The corner property and the idea that that would be transacted in the spring is because there's an understanding that once the hotel's in place, there'll probably be a better opportunity for sale of that property, and just maintaining it a little longer kind of buys down some of the carrying costs the developer would have. So that's why there's a staggered closing, and certainly the council's aware of the hotel project. It was at the meeting last week with the IDO project, and we saw the elevations and the site plan, and it's moving forward. We're hoping to get the property closed, and they're wanting to get footings in the ground this fall, and we'd like to see that thing going up in the air in the spring. So it's a pretty exciting project. I think the development that's going to drive this hotel is going to drive development in the area substantially, and it's going to be a great improvement for the community. So, any questions on any of the specifics of it?
This is the public hearing, so is there anyone in the audience want to speak in favor of this project? Not seeing any. Anyone want to speak against this project or more information on it? Don't see anyone. Public hearing is now closed. Mr. Brandt.
Yes, I make a motion to approve Resolution 26297, approving the disposition of a portion of public property located south of 8th Avenue, north of 5th Avenue, and between 27th and 31st Street, Marion, Iowa, to GLD Properties, LLC.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Discussion from council? Yes.
I kind of have a question, Lon.
Okay.
So, just out of curiosity, with hotel motel tax on that hotel once it's built, is it, do we have, so if that generates an extra $100,000, let's say, is that something that has to be distributed back out to the community in grants, or is that something where we could recoup the $102,000 that the cost?
The state law for the use of proceeds from hotel motel tax has a couple of stipulations on it. You can use, I believe, up to 50% for any general public purpose, but then the other 50% is, if I'm remembering this correctly, is supposed to go towards projects that enhance tourism or draw people to the community. We have chosen internally to do that hotel motel grant program that supports a lot of our community organizations, but there's not a legal requirement that that's how you distribute the funding. A lot of times communities will actually just choose to keep that internally and use it to fund parks and things like that that clearly meet the stipulations that are set out in the state law. I'm not 100% sure on those percentages, but just that's the general stipulations in the law.
So would that be possible for us to do that in the future?
Yeah, the council would have the opportunity to either retain the funding to use it for future city projects, or you could choose to put part of it towards the hotel motel grant program, part of it towards the towards other city projects. Mm-hmm.
As long as we spend the money on a city project, we would have no issue with the state law. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and for reference, right now the city, I think the highest year we've had since I've been here for hotel motel collections was a little over $200,000. A typical year would be about $180,000. The hotel here in their early years of operations, estimating about $145,000, and in the later years would be bringing in about $185,000 just on its own.
I'll ask if it could be used for grants for like Rotary or some project like that.
The what?
If they could use it for grants for the Rotary or matching fund type thing.
If hotel motel tax can be used for,
like if Rotary had a project, then we would match it with those funds.
Is that something? Can it be used for, like, if Rotary had a project?
Oh yeah. It's
funds or something.
The council has a lot of discretion with the use of those.
There's a grant application.
Yeah. That'd be a good use for it.
Yeah.
Anything else then on the resolution 26297? Hearing none. All those in favor of resolution 26297 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Your Honor, I move to approve the second consideration of ordinance 1720, approving requests to rezone property located north of 29th Avenue, west of 44th Street, A1 Rural Restricted, to PDR and A1 Rural Restricted, to R2 Medium Density Single Family Residential. This comes from Robinson Homes, LLC.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Not hearing any. All those in favor of ordinance 17-20 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ordinance carries.
Your Honor, I move to suspend the rules on this ordinance with the stipulation that since the mayor cannot vote, the rest of us would have to vote affirmatively for it to be
Right.
passed out of its third reading.
That's correct.
Second? So you made
Is
the
there a
motion?
second? Yeah,
Second.
a second on that.
Yeah.
So, any questions on moving forward with the third on this? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving ordinance 17-20 for the third reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Oh, Ms. Pazur.
I'm taking this one. I recommend approval of resolution number 26298, directing staff to initiate process to close on 11th Street between 5th and 6th Avenues.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
Yes, Your Honor. There's still an awful lot of contention about having closed 11th Street between 6th Avenue and 8th Avenue. And I was on the council when that happened, and experts came in and said, oh, this is what is necessary. This will move your uptown area along. This is the best thing that can happen. And I think closing any streets in the uptown area is not a good idea. Just my opinion.
I think you'd remember as being on the council, councilman, that the traffic count was really small on that street. I was active as well. And that street doesn't go anywhere. You know, that's the downside of it. And I think if we can gain, I've been in favor of closing 6th for some time, or in between 6th and 5th. And makes sense to me. And I don't disagree that closing streets. We tried that. We tried one ways, and we tried no parking. You remember none of that worked. But 11th Street, both ends of it has worked pretty well, I think, being a closed area. It's kept a lot of traffic off of a very busy 7th Avenue coming from the south. But boy, going to the north, there wasn't much. And 5th Avenue as it develops, or 6th Avenue as it develops, it's going to be an important area in there. You know, so it makes sense to me to do it.
Anyone else? I guess the way this reads, it looks like you're closing at 5th also. I guess from the picture we saw Tuesday that 5th, the end on 5th Avenue would stay open. Is that correct?
Yeah, the initial concept that they presented would need to use that stub off of the 5th Avenue side as an entrance into either a parking lot that they would plan behind their building or into the parking ramp that would be on the block between City Hall and the library. Now, that may be something that changes once they know that that is in play and they have more access to that area for the whole layout. But it's just hard for me to fathom that they wouldn't want to have some kind of a driveway or something coming into the back for any of the parking that's going to be on the site.
Yeah, I guess the way that reads, it says that both, to me, it would say both ends are closing, but that's not the case.
It would, because it'd be private, it'd be parking, or it'd be
it would become a driveway.
At the end of the parking
So it wouldn't be public street anymore, it'd be just driveway.
Okay, gotcha.
Right.
Any other questions after my dumb one?
We're used to it, Joe. It's okay.
Oh, that's right, that's right. Okay, this is resolution 26298. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
And the mayor abstaining. So, Mr. Draper.
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to motion directing staff to enter negotiation with Aspect Architecture regarding the library site redevelopment.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Comments or questions?
Yes, Your Honor. I think this is putting the cart before the horse. I really think that there are things that have to be put into place before any negotiations with anybody about redevelopment of that site needs to be done. Like parking has to be addressed way before, so that if somebody wants to put in another 70 apartments, they know where they're going to be able to park. And as it stands right now, it's on paper. There is nothing, there is no concrete metal parking place there. It's just on paper. So I don't think this is a good idea.
I think that's what this is to direct staff to negotiate with them, because it is also including a ramp. Like,
But
that includes the parking for it.
But did you look at the cost of the whole project, which is like $30 million? Unless they rewrote it wrong, the economic impact. But when completed, the entire project cost for the entire development is estimated at $30,432,000. And I don't know. I can't write a check for that, can you?
That wouldn't be the city's not paying 30
Who knows?
million.
I don't, there's too many questions. I think this is not a,
The
That's
city,
why we do negotiations.
city would be paid for the property and so we would get funds from that, correct?
That's part of everything that we have to work out. I mean, without being able to enter into negotiations, I have no ability to answer those questions.
Right.
I think it's too soon, that's all. The thing with the mall property hasn't been settled yet. And until that is a done deal, no. Because it's things like this. I went back and looked at a lot of things that have happened, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, when did I vote on that? And it wasn't that I voted on it necessarily, but it was like to enter negotiations, and then from there it proceeded to snowball into action. And no, this, I don't think it's a good idea.
Well, just to be fair, that's how the process is supposed to work. When we go into something like this, we need to know from the staff that the council wants us to spend time working on a project like this. I mean, if the majority of the council feels that it's a good project and directs us to enter negotiations, we'll develop those detailed cost projections, work out the agreements that have to be put in place to bring back to council. But any of those things that are based on either the city directly owning a parking ramp or entering into a lease with a parking ramp, having a development agreement in place with the builder to build a new building on the library site, all of that has to come back through the council. Many of them are required public hearings, so there's a lot of steps that have to be done, all in full view of the public in order to bring that project into fruition. But this is, you're correct, this is the starting point.
But the whole thing is, once again, on the library, since the funding is not going to use bond issue, there will be no public hearing, so therefore it's no vote on that. And no. It just, I don't think it's in the city's best interest. I really don't. And if you're going to put in 150 apartments uptown, which is 74 among this and 70 on the library and 4 at Shemco and 2 where the antique mall is right now, that's 150 extra apartments uptown. Where are you going to put these people? Just a thought.
Any other questions?
You know, when I first saw this on the agenda, I too was a little thinking, I wish the library stuff was all resolved more than having this discussion next, because that seems logical to me. Would be the logical step. Having the library stuff more further along, what's going to happen there, because when we're talking about redevelopment of our current library without the other one being resolved yet, that seems a little quick to me, but I do understand this is just negotiation. You know, it's a negotiation where there would be more happen. This is a starting point. This is not saying that this would actually move forward. It's negotiation with them to work out details to see if things are going to move forward. So because it is it's just not. There's several more steps that would have to come before us. I'm feeling like it seems awkward to me to be doing this one, having this before the others totally all resolved. But because it's just negotiation standpoint, I can probably support moving forward.
However, if Aspect Architecture looks at this, well, they just want to enter into negotiations, we don't know if they're serious or not, they might not want to spend the time or the effort to come up with anything either. So it's no.
And the other piece to Councilman Nicholson's comments that this does is Aspect's project is a little bit different than the library project. While both have significant commercial components, the library project is based around that being commercial space that's used for retail or potentially some small office. Aspect is looking at having a major employer on their main floor. And before they can really sit down and start having serious conversations with that major employer, the company wants to know that the council is supportive of the project. So what this does in this case, normally we would not be bringing this one forward this early, but this allows Aspect to sit down and begin negotiations to get to the point where they could have a lease for that main floor to bring that employer to our community. So to your point, Dave, normally it would be a little later in the process, probably after the library, but this one does have some unique dynamics about it with that piece involved.
That answer your question? Any questions on this side? Okay. All those in favor of this motion regarding negotiations with Aspect Architecture signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
No.
One no, and the mayor abstained.
And
Yeah. One.
right, consistent with my recusing myself on matters related to the airport, I won't be participating in this either.
Okay. That's all.
Okay, I make a motion directing staff to issue a request for proposals regarding airport design services.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Want to give us a little brief on this?
Yeah, the city received a grant award in 2016 from the DOT for doing formal design for some runway improvements out at the airport. And so this RFP will allow us to procure a professional not only to do that, but the way that this RFP is structured, it's set up so that we're actually going to be entering into an agreement with an engineering firm for any of the next several projects that could potentially come about. So if we are successful in getting our grant for the actual runway expansion based off of these designs, then they would provide construction management services and grant administration services for that. This was being done at the DOT staff's suggestion so that you're not doing a different request for proposals every time you do an airport project. So this would cover anything that we would work on in the next 3 years.
Now, does this include acquisition of more property as far as the runways are concerned?
This project is not. This is simply widening the existing runway and rehabilitating the existing surface.
Thank you.
So the way these grants work, would we be involved in the bidding too? I mean, there'll be an initial bid for this contractor.
Yeah, with DOT funds involved, we do have to bid those.
Yeah, so that'd only be at the initial, and then after that, then they get the rest.
For the engineering services, yes. So if we apply for a grant in 2018 and receive the grant in 2018, they would provide the services for that. Same thing for 2019.
Okay, gotcha. Other questions? At least I didn't ask a dumb one on this one. Okay, all those in favor of directing staff for a request for proposal regarding the airport design services, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All the motion carries. make a motion to approve ordinance number 17-21 relating to parades, marches, and First Amendment assemblies for initial consideration.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 17-21 relating to parades, marches, and First Amendment assemblies. Discussion?
I know the chief gave us a presentation on the fire department on Tuesday, and they had really nice parade uniforms. I think they ought to be doing that again.
Yeah. Fire drills.
Fire drills, yep.
Any discussion on the proposed ordinance? Okay. All those in favor of ordinance number 17-21, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion passes.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve ordinance number 17-22, establishing the rules for the Uptown Artway, initial consideration.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 17-22, establishing the rules of the Uptown for the Uptown Artway. Discussion? Everyone's familiar with?
I think it's good to get them in place.
Okay.
There's no rules right up there right now. It's important to get them in place and
Okay.
have some rules.
All those in favor of ordinance number 17-22, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no.
Your Honor,
Motion passes.
because we had meetings with the contiguous properties up there with no objections, I'd like to suspend the rules and go to the second consideration of this motion.
Second?
So it's been moved and seconded to suspend the rules and go to the second consideration, second and third, or second?
Second at this time, Your Honor.
Second consideration. Is that possible to do, legal counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Well, normally, you go through the initial, and then if there's any comments, then on the second consideration, you suspend and go to the third. This is kind of,
We plan to go to the third. Well,
yeah, but you see what I mean? This just brings
It's
it out
not
to the
normal.
public for the first time, and
summer is growing short. We need to get this thing, we need to get this
And I'll
thing
say too
enforced.
that, I mean, they're basically the same rules like that are in the parks. So
Yeah.
it's really nothing
Yeah.
different. Actually expanding it a little more with the no smoking, no vaping.
yeah.
Topic.
Is
no
that
smoking.
in there? the
Yeah, no vaping.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on suspending the rules and moving to the second consideration on ordinance 17-22?
You gonna go for third?
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion passes.
Your Honor, I make a motion to suspend the rules and go to the third consideration for ordinance 17-22.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to suspend the rules and move to the final consideration for ordinance 17-22. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor of ordinance 17-22, final consideration, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes.
Hi, Your Honor. I'd like to, I'm pleased to recommend a resolution number 26299 approving a memorandum of understanding regarding tax increment finance and incentives for legacy manufacturing.
Second. All in one breath.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 26299 approving a memorandum of agreement regarding tax increment financing incentives for legacy manufacturing.
Mayor, I do have a brief staff report on this one. Just to let you know, there had been one alteration to the agreement. The initial agreement was set up for a rebate of a maximum of $740,000 with a minimum assessment in it of $16 million. The company has asked that we remove the minimum assessment agreement, but they also acknowledge that the minimum assessment was basically to guarantee during that 5-year period that they could receive the $740,000. With the minimum assessment removed, if the assessment comes in lower than that, they would receive less than the $740,000, and they're okay with that. So it's not something that has any particular impact on the city one way or another, but just wanted you to be aware that we had made that change. It still reads a maximum of $740,000 in case the assessment equals that amount or higher. So there is a cap, but there's now, instead of trying to target that specific number, there could potentially be a lower floor. From the state perspective, the dollar amount doesn't matter. It's the percentage of rebate that we're granting that matters for match for their program.
The project's very exciting that they're expanding in, and so I'm very pleased. So
These were for a 20-year, is this a 20-year too?
No, this is a 5-year. 4 years at 75% and 1 year at 50%.
Okay.
Okay, other discussion? All those in favor of resolution number 26299, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no.
Your Honor,
The motion passes, yes.
Your Honor, I move to approve Resolution 26,300 relating to the financing of a proposed project to be undertaken by the City of Marion, Iowa, establishing compliance with reimbursement bond regulations under the Internal Revenue Code.
Second?
And a brief staff report on this one as well. This was added from Tuesday because of a timing issue. Whenever a city undertakes a project for which you anticipate that you're going to repay yourself from a future bond, we have to pass a resolution like this within 60 days of the project so that we can be reimbursed for it. So this is for the parking project in the Uptown where we acquired the law firm. And we're going to turn that into surface parking. We had originally thought that we'd be okay to have it approved in September, but because we acquired it before the end of the fiscal year, we had to have this passed in August. It's one of those weird things with the extra couple of weeks in between, just didn't catch that in the timing originally.
So the plan is still to lease this back and then have a refund of the project at the end?
We have acquired it, and we'll build the parking lot on it. They have essentially an option to buy it back from us anytime within the next 10 years at the amount that's $10,000 less than we purchased it for.
But this resolution is unrelated to that?
No, this is just so that when we do the bond, the next phase of our borrowing, we can reimburse ourselves. We bought it using part of the balance in the Capital Projects Fund. So to reimburse the Capital Projects Fund, we have to have this resolution on the books.
Discussion? All those in favor of resolution number 26300, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no.
Your Honor, I make this motion for this mayoral appointment for Benjamin Skogelbo for the Local Option Sales Tax Oversight Committee, term expiring of December 31st of 2019.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the appointment of Benjamin Skogerby to the Local Option Sales Tax Oversight Committee. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Discussion time?
Your Honor, I got a piece of mail today, and it is a satirical undertaking celebrating the life of Mayor Ron Corbett. And it is plainly a fundraiser, but it says on this, you are invited to put the fun into funeral. And I kind of, actually this is kind of funny, but yet it's kind of a knock on people who have to go through funerals and take this seriously. And but this is a satirical undertaking, but like I said, it's also a fundraiser, so I don't believe I'll be going. I don't attend visitations and funerals and have to pay $60 to go.
Dave?
I'd like to comment on the AA bond rating, AA1 bond rating that the city has with regard to going out for the GO bond sale. And I mean, we as citizens in our community should be very proud that we have a city such in the financial good states that they are in and have a bond rating at that high. That is very hard to get and very hard to maintain. And what they see, what the city's doing, the growth that the city's having, the commercial growth that's happening, that plays into the bond rating. And I think we're doing a lot of great things here. I think we should be very proud, and I thank Lon and the staff and everybody too of keeping us at this level. So that's really great.
Agreed. Anything?
I wanted to brief council a little bit on the airport board selection that I'm doing. I have had 7 interviews so far with people. I've got 2 more names on the list, and so I think the board. I think the goal is to have 7 people on the board, and we've also been asked by Medco if they would have a representative of Medco on the board too, and so that's one of the considerations I'll probably bring forward to the council to see if you want to have that. And of course, I think Lon, you're an ex officio on that board. Is that right?
I function in the role of staff on that one.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, so we have 9 people basically applied for the job, and so I should have that selection done by next week, and we'll have the names ready for the first meeting in September.
Oh, yes. I couldn't help notice today, I drove by what I call the Bolster Furniture Building, and it seems to be available, and I begin to remember back a few things. The interesting thing is, original building, built 1888, was a 3-story building well before Phil High built his taller building in our community, and it was reduced to 2 stories at a later date. But it was the Daniels Hotel and an opera house on the 2nd floor that would seat 700 people. And the grand stairway, portions of it is still in the rear of that building. In the front of the building, thanks to the fire department, they saved when they had a fire in the back of the building, and they concentrated very hard on saving the front of that downtown building. Interesting, the original Bolster was Ludwig, and he had furniture stores in several cities in Iowa, and they were also funeral homes in those days. They were combination furniture stores and funeral homes. This Bolster store did a lot of business off the train. People would come in and have 2 or 3 hours with nothing to do, and they'd go shopping, and Bolster's developed quite a business off of that. Well, I began to think of that, and unlike Mary Lou, we've both gone to more funerals at our age than we probably should. But I began to think today that Pappy Bolster is gone, Don Bolster is gone, but I have so many other people on my life's ledger that I considered friends that were downtown merchants and people I were familiar with, and many of you may as well. Fred Weber Sr., George Murdoch of the Murdoch Funeral Homes, Harold Stickney of the Scoreboard, great downtown merchants. Bill and Nancy Weber were next door with a pizza place from there. Roger LeGrand made it here with his wife Dee Dee from Belgium to open the Queen and Teen Shop along 7th Avenue. He had a fellow foreigner by the name of Al Berger. Al Berger was from Austria, and he was a United States renowned furrier. People would fly in here from all over to have him do their furrier work. He learned the trade in Austria and knew how to cut the pellets to get the most out of them. Ralph Potter is gone, Tom McGowan, realtors, Vince Hatt, realtor, George Lau, who the park is named after, Henry Katz, what a citizen he was, Carl Stuber, Jack Hamstrom, Kyle Castle, King Castle Foods, Jim Roche, Price Electric, and of course Don Balster and Pappy Balster. My former partners, J.O. and W.C. Sheets, John Bauslag, good friend and competitor, John Slaughterback, realtor, Don Vossler, who was part of Revoswell Homes, Terry Welch, who developed a whole lot around here. And I have to mention little Mary Pazur, who was very active in the old First National Bank and its development with Phil and John. So I thought it was kind of, when I start listing all those people, and I'm sure I've missed some, I realize how old I'm getting, I think.
I do have one. Did you say Castle, what was that about?
Kyle.
Yeah, but what did he have?
King Castle Coal.
Okay, I thought you said food, and I was going to wait a minute.
Well,
because the slogan was "Keep your castle cozy with Castle Brothers Coal."
Okay. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you.